Welcome to day 2 of me talking again. I brought Michael up this time to break it up a bit, so hopefully I'm not too monotone or anything. But basically what we wanted to talk about in this presentation was safety is everyone's responsibility. And in the focus discussion, we're going to focus on the organisational culture and our safety culture particularly. And this is something that in my RSO conference, I had a really good session with my RSOs, and we discussed the safety culture of RAAus, where we've been, where we are right now, and where we want to be in the future. The first thing that we're going to bring up is a video clip of an RAAus member having a near miss. And what I want you to have a look at is, have a look at the incident, have a look at the person who's flying, but also have a look at the people that it affects. So it's got family members actually there watching this person having this near miss, and they've actually videotaped the wife and the implication that it has on people. And this is the kind of message that we're starting to think about, that we need to force out, and Mike will probably be able to go into further on down the track, some of the conversations he's had with family members after serious accidents and fatalities, because a near miss also affects everyone around you. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start a quick video. It's about 3 or 4 minutes long. Hopefully it works.
Okay, just head for 3. Got damage on the wingtip, but that looks like no factor. You can stand back if you like, and I'll get Nigel on there and get an appraisal for him.
I felt I was having a fairly good run. Coming around the second lap, I typically become slow in that last quarter, so I planned to go a little bit harder in that last quarter. I came through the gate 13, I believe it is, with too great an angle to the chicane, and then I broke one of my own rules. I actually looked into the turn, which means I don't fly the aircraft naturally. I pulled on it. I've G-stalled the aircraft, which has rolled me slightly past the knife edge. I managed to get it back to wings level and recover. I believe I might have skipped twice on the water because I felt 2 impacts, flew it away, and then obviously it was all just trying just to get it back on the ground safely. Everyone was okay. So just very disappointing result for me, obviously. It's the motor racing equivalent of touching the wall and driving back into pits. I didn't have to get dragged out of the aircraft, and the plane is damaged but will be recoverable. So from here, our game plan is to just get some rest for me. I'm sure it's going to hit me a bit harder in a few hours' time. We'll make a plan for the aircraft, and hopefully we'll have everything back on track for the next race in New York.
Okay, so what I wanted to talk about this morning with Michael is we're talking about organisational culture. For anyone that knows about culture, it usually covers a few things: shared values, customs, traditions, rituals, behaviours and beliefs. And some of the symbols, stories and heroes and norms are some of the things that you see in cultures. And what RAAus is trying to do with Matt Hall is enforce that he could be a hero for our organisation, because he's very open about the lessons that he learns from his incidents. And in this case, he's been an advocate and he's told people about this near miss, what happened. As you can see there, he broke one of his golden rules, and that's something that we are trying to enforce. We're trying to tell people to open up and discuss their previous incidents and accidents more. However, we find as an organisation that it's a bit stalled at the moment, that we can't get that information out of people. So I don't know whether Jill wants to build on this, but she basically took Matt Hall for his BFR recently. It was about in the last week. And one of the things that came out of it was, she said, right, do you want to go for your low level endorsement? And he said, no, I don't need it in this aircraft. So he actually said, no, I don't need it. Yes, I fly low level all the time, but he's mature enough as an aviator to say, this is not something that I require from it at all. Do you want to add on that at all, Jill?
The only thing I wanted to add there was just, there's 2 points to that. The maturity of someone like Matt Hall, whereby you're assessing an accident like that in purely viewing it as, what did I do wrong? What should I do to not have that happen again? How can I send that message out to people? So it's not one of those exciting, oh my God, there I was, I just hit the river, rah, rah, rah. It was a very clear analytical analysis of his mistake, broke his golden rule, never do that again, and hopefully we'll never have that experience. But he said it wasn't appropriate for him to have a low-level endorsement in our category of aircraft. He didn't believe it was appropriate. The aircraft weren't suitable. He didn't have a need for it. Again, a decision made by a mature pilot, not an expert pilot.
So our next slide is talking about our open and fair reporting culture for an organisation like RAAus. So what does it mean to RAAus today? And I'm just going to read out a statement, and we're going to have a bit of an interactive session where Michael and I are going to have a chat and ask you as chief flying instructors of what you think this statement is to you and whether it will be beneficial to you. Intermittent human and mechanical failures culminating in safety incidents occur from time to time. Collecting information on incidents and, where necessary, analysing causes allows problems to be identified which, when resolved, can prevent future errors and incidents. To support occurrence reporting, it is vital to have an effective data collecting system and, in addition, an open and fair culture where those who report are supported and not punished. Research has revealed that where this culture has been introduced, large numbers of incidents are identified and solutions implemented that improve the safety outcomes for the whole organisation can be achieved. RAAus operates an open and fair reporting culture and believe that educating our members provides better outcomes than punishing them. Please report all occurrences. We can all learn from your experiences. So I'm going to hand over to Michael now, and he's going to have a few discussion points with you about that statement.
And I suppose my first question, it is a question, why don't people report? So might get Katie running around with a microphone. Too much Chinese last night, Katie. Some exercise now.
I had a phone call with Trevor Bange. I had a phone call with a member yesterday trying to convince him to report a near miss recently. And he said, oh, every time I report anything, every time I do something, I get ramifications. People are coming back at me, trying to involve my CFI, trying to involve this. He said, I don't want to do that. I don't want it on my licence. I don't want it on my name. And he's basically refusing to do anything about it.
So what are the ramifications? Jill, do we kick people out of RAAus for doing the wrong thing? I don't think nobody's been kicked out since I've been here.
No, there's only one person we have removed from the organisation, and he did some far worse things. He removed himself. We have not kicked anyone out of the organisation. We don't keep any record about the reports other than the value that they have for us to analyse what reports are being given. So we don't keep a record against someone's licence and say, oh, this pilot's done so many naughty things. So no.
So I don't know what the fear of the person is, Trevor. What is going to happen other than 10,000 other people learning from his experience? Now, obviously, if there's something and there's a training deficiency, people need to talk to that person about retraining and education. And I'm sure Matt Hall did that. I'm sure he sat down and he thought about what happened and he spoke to colleagues and people around him to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. I do it. I make a mistake. I sit down with Mick, our president. Right, how do we fix that in the future? I don't hide it. You know, we paid a bill recently in the business to the tax office twice. A $30,000 bill was paid twice. First thing I did was report it to the board. Now, I didn't lose my job. The person who made the mistake didn't lose their job. They said, what process have we got in place to protect us from making those mistakes in the future, Michael? We put a process in place. We got the money back. Hard work, it was the tax office, but we did get it back in the end. But the money came back to us with a little bit of interest, which was good. So at least the tax office paid interest. So we've got to try and shift the culture of the organisation. I think making statements like this, as motherhood as they are, I think this is going to live on our homepage of our current management system. So when everybody goes in there, they see it. Now, as Jill said, and as a few of us said, if you openly admit to flying upside down under the Harbour Bridge time and time again, well, hang on a sec, you're being willful, you're being disobedient, you've been deliberate. But if you just screw up, tell us. We can help you, we can change that philosophy, we can get education out, and we can tell other people. What if this person, Trevor, what if somebody in New South Wales is having the same problem? What if somebody in Victoria is having the same problem? What if somebody in WA is having the same problem? Imagine if Katie all of a sudden got 6 requests, 6 reports of the same incident. We can then talk to Claire and we can build a training course and we can educate these people. So by not telling us, he's robbing others of the opportunity to learn. So I see non-reporting as theft from the organisation at the end of the day. You're taking away the opportunity for me, for others, for the organisation to learn and for everybody in the organisation to progressively grow. And I'd love it if some of you guys would start saying that to some of our members. By not reporting, essentially you're robbing us of a learning opportunity. Any other thoughts on why people don't report and what we can do about it?
I think you've got to start with the students. So we always sort of say to them that by reporting an incident, regardless of how small it is, and that's the beginning, so we're reversing the pyramid. So at the moment you've got the culture of we don't want to report because we'll get into trouble. So CFIs, like myself, we have to turn around and say to the new students, that's not the case. If you report, it makes a stronger industry. So I always use the thing that, let's say a wheel fell off at 100 hours on an aircraft, but it was not reported, and there were 3 reported instead of 10. So at the end of the day, if those 10 were reported, there's 13 reports that the wheel fell off at 100 hours. So at the end of the day, the manufacturer, RAAus, can contact the manufacturer and say, look, this is a common thing, they can change it. And that's the way I explain it to our students. So they come to me with all sorts of little things that I report. A lot of them are just irrelevant, but they're reporting, and that's the important part.
And nothing is relevant. I sit there with Kate and she says, just tell her everything. People think we'll be inundated with all these reports. Well, from next week when we launch the accounts management system, there's no human intervention in that system. There's no extra work for Katie, no extra work for Jill or Darren or me. We're just going to get all these reports filtering into the system, and because the system is so automated, we'll be able to work through those progressively. So don't think for a second that you create workload for us, because there might be a little spike of workload when people start reporting, and we expect reporting to go up, and I'd hope it would go up. But in time, the more reports they get, the more ability we're going to have to feed this information back. And exactly, a wheel falls off, we get told about it once, we get told about it 13 times, and it's a manufacturer and a specific model of aircraft. That's the lead and lag indicators as we're talking about. The lag indicator is the fact that the wheel fell off. The lead indicator is 13 wheels fell off. We went to the Icarus Wombat company and we said to Icarus Wombat producers, hey, the wheel on your aircraft is falling off after 100 hours. They review their production schedule, they review their maintenance regime, and they might say, well, we need to check wheel nuts at 75 hours. And then that becomes a lead indicator. We fixed that problem and those wheels won't fall off anymore, and we've shifted from the lag indicator to a lead indicator. Any other comments on why people aren't reporting, what we can do to improve the culture?
Yes.
Eugene.
A lot of pilots out there don't realise what they should report, especially the more minor things. But on top of that, it's just too hard. It's too much trouble. We're not sure what form to fill out, where to find it. But if it goes online, I believe it'll make an amazing difference. They can go online and just put it straight through.
It'll be online, it'll be on our homepage, it'll be a single click button on our homepage, and it'll be click on report. And we'll fill in the ATSB report for you as well if that's a necessary part of sending the report in. So I think we've solved that one. Eugene, and as you saw during the board meeting and as Katie demonstrated yesterday, this system, it's ready to go live. We're just finalising. Jared's been working up the back, Kelly's been working up the back, putting the finishing touches on these products as we go through our series of meetings and make some of the final changes. So Jared's going to demonstrate some of that tomorrow afternoon. Another comment on reporting.
May I just make a suggestion? That's all good stuff. I think you should rework that into a policy document, put your signature on the bottom of it as CEO and put it on the front page of the ops manual.
Happy to do that. Give me a texter now. We'll sign it off. Got it sorted, Jill's on all over it. Any other thoughts or comments? We've got one over here. We are working.
I was just going to say there are errors, but there's also violations, and you can't say that violations shouldn't or are not punishable. So
And that's what I said about the willful and deliberate stuff, and when people violate. And one of the things we're doing, we're taking the disciplinary process, and I think there'll always be a disciplinary process because there's a small number of people that will do the wrong thing either repeatedly or deliberately. And currently we've got a very cumbersome process within our constitution. And whenever there's a formal complaint or formal process, we've got to go to the constitution, which just then adds layers and layers and layers of administrative nightmare. When I started, Jill came into my office in my first week and she put a pile about this big on my desk and said, there's 7 disciplinary matters, Michael. And I thought, oh my God, 7. I thought there was 150 there. And the paperwork that it generates and the time that we took to go through those was phenomenal. So we're pulling that straight out of the Constitution and we're going to develop a policy, a disciplinary policy, and it will be an easy way to manage willful violations. And again, it's not about this punishment. We're not going to take your licence off you for 2 years or we're not going to kick you out of the organisation. It's going to be focused on education. And I'll take you back to my culture in my previous career at RAAus and ECA. We used to seize animals off people. And the minute you start seizing animals, you fill the shelter up with lots and lots of dogs. So the better process was to educate the person so they could look after their dog. So taking your licence off you, grounding your aircraft, isn't education. It's tantamount to taking your dog off you and putting it in a shelter. What we need to do is sit with you and prevent the future violation. So tell us about the violations and then let's have a conversation about them. If they're not deliberate, if they're accidental, well then it's a training issue. If they're deliberate, well then we need a tool, we need an opportunity to demonstrate and use some of those people. But we've had 2 clear violations recently. Low flying, flying without a licence, crashing into trees, throwing things out of your craft as you fly. Both those members, Jill's been in open conversation with, and we're going to get them back into the organisation. And that's the culture that we're trying to shift. Now, these violations were very public and on the news. CASA may take an alternate view. But for us, the view is let's get you back into the tent. We'd rather you flying legally than flying illegally and doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think what would help in this culture is to get feedback. If you put an incident report in, or you put a report of any kind in, we've done a couple of these and we don't really hear what happens. So it sort of gets a bit demoralising. You go through all this trouble and you don't really get a closure on it.
Yeah, and the new occurrence management system will fix that up. We've also implemented a 360-degree reporting complaints process in the office. What used to happen is we'd get to about 270 degrees. So somebody would lodge a complaint, we'd process that complaint, Katie would look at it, she'd give it to Jill or Darren, they would follow up with the person, they'd put the corrective action in place or the education, and we'd close it off. And I'm saying, hang on a sec, what about the person back here who lodged the complaint? Surely they deserve some feedback and some thanking for lodging the complaint and some advice. Now, sometimes the outcome might not be what you want. Sometimes the complaint might be vexatious, and sometimes there might be personalities involved. But we've still got a responsibility to go back to that person and say, the complaint you lodged about X, Y, Z flying upside down under the Harbour Bridge, well, sorry, we've taken appropriate action internally in the organisation. We thank you for your complaint. We've managed that process internally. It's difficult to tell people the outcomes because people have different expectations, and it's not the complainant's right to determine the outcome. So people will say to me, I had a staff member make a mistake recently on an ASIC card, and the customer was quite upset. Wrong photo on a card with the wrong name, inadvertent fraud. And he said, I want you to sack that staff member. And I said, it's not for you to tell me what to do with the staff member. I'll put the process in place and I'll make the appropriate decision. My job to you is to give you a commitment. I'll get your card fixed and I'll take the appropriate action. And we haven't been doing that. And I think we have to close the loop. And we've implemented that in the last couple of months. The RAAus will do that. When you lodge a complaint, when you lodge an occurrence in your members portal on the new system, which Jared's demonstrating tomorrow, you'll have a record of every occurrence that you've lodged, and you'll be able to get an update and know exactly where that is. So I think we'll close that feedback loop.
With the status, and then you can log back into it and get that summary and the outcome out of it.
So we'll just take one more comment, and we might throw back to Katie and continue. One more comment?
Yep.
One more coming up. We found in a particular airline system we had trouble getting people to report because there's always a fear that there will be some punitive action down the path. So in the end, the way we got around it was we put a small safety committee in place which had nothing to do with the management, and all reports would be viewed by that safety committee. And once they had completed the report, they would go back and talk to the people who'd had the incident or maybe made a fairly serious mistake but no further action was required, and clear the area. And then they would de-identify the report and give it to management to try and put a patch in place. But we found that junior people would never ever put their name on anything because they were worried about their future careers. So we would accept anonymous reports, but we prefer to have the name for the safety committee so we could go back and see if there was any more data we needed. Sometime the report wasn't complete enough. But you will find that there's always that fear factor. There has to be some sort of a safety valve in place where they figure that, okay, it's not going to go any further, regardless of what management says.
And that's difficult. It's a small community, we have small airfields sometimes. And we've had people ring up when we've said a complaint's been lodged. The first thing that somebody says to Katie, oh, I bet you that was Bill. You know, oh, he doesn't like me, he's complained about me. And Katie's always appropriate and says, can't tell you who's complained about you. And she won't tell, won't share that name. And that's the interesting thing internally. We can't ask Jill or Darren to progress and investigate a complaint without them having the name, but the names never go to the board. The board never gets individual reports. The board gets aggregate data. My interest is aggregate data, and generally I sit with Katie, it's about the incident, the issue. So we might have to build some wording or something in there, Katie, to give some comfort.
Yeah, sure, Michael. And also the pilot talk, Safety Matters, that's what our articles are about. We're about that trend analysis and that information that's coming back to us. So while you're not getting it individually, we are trying to put it out as a collective organisation of our key areas. And that's how we came up with the 3 topics for Hangar Talk. We've got problems with low-level flying, fuel mismanagement. Oh my God, if one more person turns off their fuel tap while they're landing, I sort of shake my head. But last week it was refreshing because the person, it was reported by the police that it was an engine failure And this guy put his hand up and said, no, it wasn't. I turned the tap off. I made a massive mistake. I've learnt from it. And that was it. It was closed off. And look, we haven't had to go any further with that.
He's still a member?
Yes.
He's still flying?
Yeah, that's it. So I think we're trying to improve that fear of, retribution and punitive action, and most of the time I'm risk managing them as well, and I'm going to try and start promoting that a bit more. So if there's, I get a lot of defects sometimes, that my tyre was flat on the runway, okay, that's fine. Maybe we need to go back and educate, hey, check your PSI on your tyre before you take off. Simple things like that, and trying to grab the trend analysis out of the information that you're sending through to us is so vital important, and we just really weren't looking at it until last year, and the amount of things that we're getting out of it now is really, really beneficial. And I think with Claire on board as our training coordinator, we will hopefully be able to get that education back out to you as CFIs in an easy way that you can give those short, brief presentations to your students. And we build on it from there. Okay, I'm just going to move on, and I'm going to talk about the evolution of safety culture. And it was really good because Tim Sloan, he made a comment about Professor Hudson, who did a lot of research on the Shell disaster. I think it's a Piper accident with the gas up. I don't have a great understanding of what actually occurred. However, there's a great paper that was out there that he created, and he talked about the evolution of the safety culture, and it talks about organisational change and the safety change, and there's 5 key steps that you need to go through to improve your safety culture. So I'll just read them out. So the bottom is pathological, and have a think about the RAAus safety culture and where we fit, as you as CFIs think that our members fit into this. Not your students and not the way you operate, but our members, and think about some of those rogue members out there. So pathological, who cares as long as we're not caught? Reactive, safety is important. We do a lot every time we have an accident. Calculative, we have systems in place to manage all hazards. Proactive, we work on the problems that we still find. And generative, safety is how we do business around here. So as you can see, you've got the 2 arrows. We're hoping that by increasingly informing you about these accidents and incidents, we will increase the trust in you and our members. And therefore, we can move up that change. Because what we want to do at the end of the day, we want to be at the top of it, and I'm not sure where you think that we might be at the moment, and I'm not sure if this is going to work, because I just realised I'm not sure if I've got the password for this still on your computer.
Do they get to use their mobile phones, Kate?
They might, because we copied off the ATSB.
But ours will work. Ours will work. Hopefully.
Yes. If you would like to, have a think about those 5 different steps and where you think we're at. Sorry, it's probably reverse order the way it's come up. But do you think we're pathological, reactive, calculative, proactive, or generative? If you could text that number into that mobile number at the top, and it will come up with your responses once you send it through.
Let's see if the technology works.
Look at that. It's really cool. It's real. It's real time.
Okay, just another 45 seconds, folks, to text that number in, and we'll declare the result.
It's better than X Factor.
Yes, it's like a fundraising event. Get your bids in now. Flight with Neil. And we'll share with you what the management team's view of this was when we did this in the office. 10 seconds.
That's really cool.
Okay, Katie, time's up. No more texting. And the winner is?
Looks like we got reactive with 61%, followed by calculative at 17%, then proactive at 13%, and then pathological at 9%.
Where was the management team at, Katie?
We saw ourselves as reactive, working towards calculative. And I think last year when I came on board, I think we very much were aware of the fact that we were reactive and that we never got that opportunity to move forward because we were so ingrained in what we were doing and trying to roll out with our resources that were available to us. And it's good to see that now we're actually starting to move forward with our safety initiatives and try and be more proactive about the way we're doing things so we can lead to that top level.
So maybe in 6 months' time we do this again, this survey, and let's see what the results are.
Sure.
Cool.
Okay, so what I wanted to show you was just another slide. This comes from WorkSafe Australia, and it basically talks about improving workplace safety. The difficulty I have with being safety management is that I've struggled with the girls in the office trying to segregate the difference between that. I oversee the operational and the technical side of things, and I don't really care if they cut their finger on a cardboard. And trying to differentiate between the two in the office. But at the end of the day, work health and safety is in alliance with safety management systems. And I mean, you're all business operators, you've all got responsibilities under the Work Health and Safety Act. And it's started to get quite real lately within Australia. Like, you all know that our regulation's quite high. You know that it's difficult with aviation regulations. However, it is just getting as serious within the workplace. I'll give you an example. In ACT recently, with this new harmonised Work Health and Safety Act that's come out, they had their first case where they had a fatality in the workplace where not only the employee, the employer was charged, he was charged $1 million. The employee, who was the safety manager at the time, received a $300,000 fine and nearly jail term because they had a fatality where a tip truck driver came into a construction site that was poorly safety managed, and basically he hit power lines and killed himself. So if you look at it in those extremities, it just tries to reinforce that we really need to focus on our safety. And you as business operators as well, this sort of aligns with the two, and that's what we're trying to force through with the safety culture as well. But also, I guess our biggest issue is those independent operators like I talked about yesterday, and trying to get out and touch base with those individuals and bring them back into the fold so that they're not running their own routine out in the middle of nowhere, and because we're finding that sometimes they're the ones that are causing the problems, and it's only a minority and the majority are actually doing the right thing. So coming up with strategies that we can focus on in that area and changing our safety culture. I'm just going to discuss 5 characteristics of a successful SMS quickly. We brought this up in the board meeting the other day and discussed that this has come from the National Safety Council in 2013, and they've overviewed safety management systems throughout the world, and these are the 5 key areas where you need to focus on. So we're going to be pushing number 1, which is leadership, and leadership from the top down within our organisation. As a management team, we've started to take this really seriously, and the benefits of having Michael on board as the accountable manager of our safety management system, he is enforcing the seriousness of enforcing our safety management to our managers. And we would like to roll that out to our chief flying instructors. You guys are the leaders of our industry and our organisation, so therefore we need leadership and safety at your level. And like you said, Peter, I think you summed it up, we need to enforce it at the new students coming through and make them feel comfortable that if they're seeing someone stepping out of place, that they're comfortable enough to go up and say, hey, there's a better way to do it, there's a safer way to do it. And we've got to try and shift that culture. Integrated system approach. Something that I found last year was we had a real sort of disjointment within our office. Technical did one thing, ops did the other. So we're really bringing them together and we're aligning the two. So we're really focusing on integrating our systems to improve our safety. Performance management, we're focusing on lead and lagging times. I think Michael's talked about that at various times over the last 2 days. So let's not just be reactive, we want to be proactive. What can we do to avoid those accidents in the future? And 4th, alignment to core organisational initiatives. Has everyone seen the strategy for RAAus? It's on our website. If you have a look, it's on our website, and it basically covers safety as our number 1. We want to make sure that everything we do in our organisation is safe. So therefore, we're aligning it with our core organisational initiatives. And then finally, core corporate citizenship and member safety. So we need to roll out safety programs. We need to assist you with your hangar talks and get everyone back into the fold. And that way we can get everyone feeling like a sort of that member association and that they're getting something back. So whether it's free education and training, but anything to improve safety. Now I found these on my Facebook page. I'm not sure if many of you know, but I used to be on patrol boats, and I found I'm part of the Free Middle Class Patrol Boat Association on my Facebook page, and someone posted pictures from, this is from the 90s, so it wasn't that long ago, but this is a V16 Detroit engine coming into the hangar in Cairns, and basically they're all wearing sandals, no hard hats, and it was shortly after this period that the Navy changed the culture. And a lot of focus was on PPE, looking out for each other, mateship, reporting. So that's one of them. There's old mate in the corner in a t-shirt, standing under a lovely heavy engine. No one's wearing hard hats. We've got sandals again. They've got it over the patrol boat, they're about to drop it in. I'm sure that would hurt if it landed on your foot. And yeah, I'll get a photo with it. Why not? It's fantastic. So, you know, it's just, there was no, when I first started going to sea, there was really not that much emphasis on it. By the time I got to being an XO patrol boat, we were risk managing when we were doing boarding. So, like, we were pulling out a piece of paper. Now, I think that's extreme. We don't need to do that. But it was the thought process and trying to get people in the thought process, like, you know, what's the weather like? It's rough today. Okay, do the boys need something specifically to take with them before they go out on the boat? So, you know, we just needed to shift that culture. I also went through cultural change with women being introduced to going to sea. So most of the guys I went to sea with in patrol boats had never been to sea with a female. And being one of two on board as a trainee, that was really tough. So I've seen some transitions with culture in my time. And I think you just got to work on it and mould it, and it all comes from the leadership. So if you've got a really solid person at the top, filtering it down to your members, then basically we can build it and change that culture. And that's, I mean, that's my philosophy. So I thought this was pretty funny. There is a chance you could win the Darwin Award. I'm sure they will. And just a final note, keep calm, and we want to fly safe. And that's what we want to do at the end of the day. And we're trying to enforce that message that we want our members to come back to their loved ones. And I look at that, the wife of Matt Hall, and everyone pays me off in the office, but pays me out in the office because I'm probably a little bit too empathetic. But that nearly killed me when I saw her. The effect of someone having a near miss and having to deal with some of the families that have had their loved ones that were killed in some of the accidents that we've dealt with. And we've dealt with too many in the last 2 years specifically. And I think that if we can start talking about it a bit more, we're hoping to improve our safety culture and get people talking again. So, has anyone got any questions? And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Katie. The really key message that we've got, and we have a break for coffee, but if you ever get a chance to do a Google search, and we'll be getting some more information on our website soon with Claire as training manager, on Matt Hall's 3 stages of flying. There's the student phase, which all of us have to go through. There's the expert phase, and then there's the mature phase. The expert phase is where a lot of our pilots are. The expert phase is where you don't report because you're embarrassed. The mature phase is when you realise you've made a mistake. Nothing to be embarrassed about. It's simply an information gathering exercise and the possibility of that information being used to train and assist. So do a Google search for that. It's some really good thought-provoking stuff. Have a 15-minute break for coffee. We'll be back at 11:15. Thank you.